You've been hearing for years that coffee is good for your heart, that it stimulates your circulation, that it gets you going, and you've probably been adding sugar to it for just as many years without thinking twice. What no one has explained to you clearly with data, without causing alarm, is what happens inside your arteries when these two things are present at the same time in the body of a man. Over 50 ore is not the coffee, is not the sugar. Separately is mare. It's the combination. And the problem isn't that you notice it right away. The problem is precisely that you don't notice it. That's what we're going to see today. Before I explain what happens, I want you to understand the full context, because without context, the information doesn't change anything. Do you know what it's like to wake up and feel like your day started late? That your body takes longer to get going than it should? Do you know what that heavy leg feeling is like in the middle of the morning when you haven't done anything to justify it? Do you know what it's like to finish breakfast, drink your coffee, and still not feel all that active? And you probably have that moment, that raid, that ritual mentally cataloged out and delays what gives you energy. What no one has told you is that it may be doing the exact opposite. This didn't start yesterday. The habit of drinking coffee with sugar in the morning has been ingrained in the routine of a large proportion of men in this age group for years, and in most cases has never been questioned. Not because it's harmless, but because its effects are not immediate. They don't hurt, they don't scare, they accumulate. What research on vascular function indicates is that the combination of caffeinated stimulation with rapid glycemic load activates the endothelium and endothelium, the inner lining of blood vessels. A response process that, repeated morning after morning, can alter the way those vessels behave for the rest of the day. And there's a specific reason why that process is more important after 50, and it's the part that this video hasn't covered yet. It's not that your body has stopped working, it's just that no one echo ito to you how he works now after 50. That difference changes everything. What happens in your arteries doesn't end when you leave the cup in the sink. Research on vascular recovery indicates that this process continues to be active during sleep, and its effect reaches you morning before you open your eyes. When the endothelium has received a repeated signal of contraction and glycemic load, night after night or every morning without pause, its ability to relax during the night's rest is compromised. What you feel when you wake up, that slowness, that heaviness that you attribute to sleep or to age, may be the accumulated result of this process. That's precisely why I prepared something specifically for this group of men, the digital book, 7 Habits That Make You Wake Up Tired After 40. You will identify which of your breakfast habits is connected to the vascular recovery that occurs while you sleep. A habit that you have never associated with how you wake up. You will understand why the body of a man over 50 responds differently to this combination, and why what was tolerable at 40 becomes relevant now. And you'll see the first concrete adjustment you can make this week without changing your entire routine. Designed for the man who wants to understand the root cause, not just manage the symptoms, and there's something inside that surprises most people. Among the 7 habits, there's one directly related to accumulated vascular stiffness, which most repeat at breakfast without knowing what's building up night after night. If any of what you just heard sounded familiar, the link is in the pinned comment. Accumulated vascular stiffness doesn't wait. The first step is to figure out which of these habits is yours. You need to accept that you feel this way, and you don't have to understand it alone. That's what we're here for. I'm Carmen Navarro. For over 20 years, I've been researching and sharing scientific studies on men's help men make informed decisions, folks. What I've observed time and time again is that when it comes to diet, the right question is almost never what to eat, but how and when. And today that question has a specific answer, because what happens in your circulation every morning starts with that cup, but it doesn't end with it. What we're going to look at in the next few minutes is exactly that. What does coffee do to your body? What does sugar do to your body? And what happens when the two hit the vascular system of a man over 50 at the same time? Let's start with coffee. Coffee isn't just a stimulant, it's one of the most concentrated sources of bioactive compounds that a man consumes on a daily basis, and its effect on the vascular system is more complex than most people imagine. Research on cardiovascular function indicates that caffeine acts on adenosine receptors in blood vessels. These receptors, under normal conditions, help keep the vessels relaxed and open. When caffeine blocks them, a transient vasoconstriction effect occurs. The vessels contract slightly for a period of time after consumption. In moderate doses and in a young and elastic vascular system, this effect is temporary and is easily reversed. The body compensates for it, processes it, and moves on. But there's an important condition in that sentence. A young and elastic vascular system. After 50, that elasticity of recovery is not the same. The vessels respond, but the compensation margin narrows, and what was transited to leave a more lasting mark, a lasting mark. There is something else to understand about coffee and age. The speed at which the body metabolizes caffeine decreases with age. This means that its effect lasts longer in the body of a minus-year-old man than in a 35-minus-year-old man. What at 35 was processed and dissipated in a few hours. At 55, it can continue to be active for much of the morning and in some cases well into the afternoon. Only coffee has studies showing benefits when consumed in moderation and without additives. The equation changes when it is not alone. And that is where the second ingredient comes in. Refined white sugar, that one that most people add at a dose without measuring, is not simply quick energy. It is a chemical signal that the body receives with urgency. When sugar rapidly enters the bloodstream, the body responds as though facing an immediate demand for energy. Research on glycemic metabolism indicates that this rapid load activates a low-intensity inflammatory response in the endothelium, the inner layer of blood vessels that we have already discussed. This response in itself is not serious. The problem is the repetition. When this signal arrives every morning for months, for years, the endothelium accumulates a load that can progressively reduce its ability to expand and contract smoothly. Bâché. The vascular wall loses part of its adaptive response capacity. After 50, sensitivity to these glycemic loads increases. What the body handled with ease at 35 requires more effort. At 55, the same breakfast, the same sugar, the same coffee, but a vascular system that no longer has the same margin as sugar alone raises questions, but its most critical moment is not when it is alone. Here's the part that almost no video explains. It is not the sum of two independent effects. It is a synergy of vascular response that goes in the wrong direction. Caffeine constricts the vessels. Sugar activates the inflammatory response. When the two stimuli arrive at the same time, at the same rate, at the same time of day, the endothelium receives a combined signal of simultaneous constriction and inflammation. This occurs in the morning window, which is precisely the moment when the vascular system is emerging from its nocturnal rest. This is when the vessels need to open, activate, adapt to the start of activity, and instead they receive a signal that goes in the opposite direction. Research on arterial stiffness indicates that this type of repeated signal can contribute to a process of progressive reduction in arterial distensibility, the ability of the vessels to adapt to flow naturally. It is not damage that occurs in a day, it is an accumulated and silent process that does not hurt while it occurs. What you feel as heavy legs in the middle of the morning or that uncomfortable feeling of heat on your face after breakfast may be the expression of this process. It is not dramatic. It is not immediate, but it is not neutral either. The information you are receiving is educational. It does not replace medical advice. If your symptoms persist, talk to a healthcare professional, and it will happen again tomorrow morning. Manuel was 61 years old and lived in Zaragoza. For more than 2 decades, he had been drinking his coffee with 2 spoonfuls of sugar as soon as he woke up. It was the first gesture of the day, the one he claimed allowed him to function. For about a year, he had been noticing something he didn't know how to describe. He would get to work at 11 a.m. with a kind of diffuse heaviness, as if his body hadn't finished going yet. His hands sometimes took a long time to warm up. Climbing the stairs at work didn't tire him out, but it left him with a feeling of sluggishness that lasted longer than usual. Oh, he thought it was just age, that after a certain point, the body simply slowed down. He never associated that feeling with the first thing he did each morning when he started switching from sugar to a low glycemic index alternative without eliminating coffee or changing anything else. In the following weeks, he began to notice that the mid-morning heaviness was coming later and less intensely. One day, he realized that he had walked up the stairs without thinking about it. It wasn't a radical change. It was a change that he had been waiting for without knowing what was blocking it. There is a chapter on this topic that doesn't fit into a single video. What you just learned about accumulated vascular stiffness has implications beyond what we're covering today. And what happens in the hours following that breakfast is the part that most affects men over 50. The combined signal that the endothelium receives each morning doesn't turn off when you get up from the table. Research on vascular recovery indicates that this barazas of inflammatory response and constriction continues active in the following hours, and it extends into the night's rest. What the body needs to do while you sleep, recover arterial distensibility, restore vascular tone, becomes more difficult when that accumulated signal has been acting for hours. What you feel when you wake up may be the result of what the body was unable to finish restore on during the night. And there are more habits that act on the same system. Some that seem completely separate from breakfast, but that research points to as part of the same accumulated pattern. That's why I prepared the digital book, 7 Habits That Make You Wake Up Tired After 40. You'll identify which of your afternoon or evening habits is activating the vascular signal that breakfast already generated, a habit that you've probably never connected with how you wake up. You'll understand why the endothelium of a man over 50 is more sensitive to this combination of stimuli, and why the compensation margin is different from what it was 10 years ago. And you'll see the first concrete adjustment you can make this week without eliminating coffee, without drastic changes designed for men who want to act on the root cause, not just alleviate what they feel. And there's a detail that I don't cover in this video. Among the 7 habits, there's one that's directly related to accumulated vascular stiffness, which most people repeat in their nighttime routine without knowing what they're adding to what they already did at breakfast, though. If any of this sounded familiar, I've left the link in the pinned comment. Check it out. If you know someone who starts their day with coffee with sugar, a family member, a friend, someone your age, share this video with them, not to alarm them, but so that they have the information that no one has given them clearly. What is not known cannot be changed. Now let's get to the practical part, because understanding the mechanism is useful, but what changes your day-to-day life is knowing what to do with that knowledge. What works is not really eliminating coffee. It is eliminating the problematic combination. The first step is to identify the amount of sugar you currently use, not to eliminate it suddenly, but to have a clear starting point. Many men discover in this simple exercise that they have not checked that amount in years. They have repeated it out of inertia. The second step is gradual substitution. Research on taste adaptation indicates that reducing sweetness gradually, not abruptly, allows the palate to adapt to out resistance. Many men report that in the first few weeks, they already perceive black coffee as sufficiently satisfactory, something that previously seemed unthinkable. The third step has to do with the schedule. Research on morning cortisol suggests that the hormone naturally peaks within the first hour of waking. Drinking coffee during this time frame can add stimulation upon stimulation, a vascular response that overlaps with one that's already active. Many men report that delaying coffee for 30 to 40 minutes after waking produces a feeling of greater stability throughout the morning. The fourth step involves checking the coffee's accompaniments. Coffee with whole milk plus sugar amplifies the glycemic load. Coffee with pastries or white bread in the same time window creates a similar cumulative effect as the direct combination. There's no need to change your entire breakfast. Just make sure it's served at the same time. And if the sweet taste is hard to shake off, or ground cinnamon on top of your coffee is an alternative that research suggests can potentially boost your glycemic response without the fast-loading effect or whirling of sugar. None of these steps require a lifestyle change. They require paying attention to what you're already doing. Many men report that within the first few weeks of making this adjustment, mid-morning sluggishness begins to lessen, to lessen. In the following weeks, the morning sluggishness, the feeling that appears before that day has begun, becomes less or more frequent. What improves first is not dramatic, it is functional. Easier to get going, fewer energy swings in the middle of the morning, more consistency throughout the day. In the first month, many men report that they no longer identify coffee with sugar as necessary because the body has stopped relying on that spike to function. The information is here. The adjustment's yours if you make it. Here's a specific challenge. For the next 7 days, try to cut the sugar in your morning coffee in half. Just that, without changing anything else. And in 7 days, tell me in the comments what you noticed. Not what you expected to notice, what you really felt. The comments on this channel are where I learn the most, and this experiment is worth sharing. Manuel did not change his life overnight. He changed one thing at the right time of day, and that was enough to notice a difference and notice difference. What you've learned today doesn't require a 10- step plan. It requires one, the right adjustment at the right time for the body you have right now. And that adjustment doesn't start with one big decision. It starts in tomorrow morning when your blood pressure is in front of you. In the first few weeks of making this change, many men report that morning sluggishness starts to feel less present in the weeks that follow. That their day starts with less effort, and in the first month, that they can't remember exactly what it was that was making them feel sluggish. It's not dramatic, but it's real, and it's yours too to start with. Small changes taken seriously make a difference that the calendar can't erase. And the first change we're taking seriously is understanding which of your habits is taking its toll. Every night in silence. The vascular signal that your breakfast generates doesn't end with breakfast. It spreads, it accumulates. And when your body tries to recover during sleep, it's working from a harder starting point than it should. It's not dramatic, but it doesn't just go away either. Get the ebook 7 habits that make you wake up that after 40 now and understand habits are interfering with your vascular recovery every night. It's going to happen anyway. The question is whether it happens with the right habit or the wrong one. Accumulated vascular stiffness doesn't wait. The link is in the pinned comment. Check to see if you're repeating this combination without realizing it tonight. Until next time, I'm Carmen Navarro. Stay informed. Stay vital. Your best years are not behind you. They can start now. Important note. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult your doctor before making any changes.